rather posh public loo in Aspen in Colorado. And really, I put it there, as the text says, to give an idea of microclimate, microclimatic threshold in this case. So all we've got is a canopy, glass with PV inset, and a wall, and of course the ground you can't see, and you've got a completely different microclimate. So that's the in-between theme kicking off. And yep, just a slight delay in the slides coming forward here. Yeah, this is another view that one of the photographs that Gloria was showing was looking up in this building. This is the SSEES, which is part of London University in Bloomsbury in London, by Alan Short from Cambridge. Well-known academic, but also a well-known practicing architect with a penchant for natural ventilation. So it's another in-between space. And in this case, effectively what we have is a light well and an air well as well. So it's like a big vertical duct. It's not actually occupied by humans. It's used to take fresh air into the spaces. And the only active part visible in this photograph are the actuators for the windows, in fact. Otherwise, it's a completely passive system. So, first of the buildings visited at one stage or another by the Scottish Solar Energy Group, not in any chronological order, but it's carrying on the theme of in between. And this is an atrium space, which is occupied by humans, students in this case, at the Jubilee campus in Nottingham. We had a much more recent visit. In fact, the last visit of any note by the Scottish Solar Energy Group was back to Nottingham. This was visited some years back. It's by Hopkins Architects, and it's got a glass roof, and again with inset photovoltaic cells. So there's a bit of, the cells are essentially, I think, designed to operate fans. Behind the piece at the center, at the top, here is a massive heat recovery. I think it's a thermal wheel, in fact, but it's a heat recovery unit. And then the entire space of the atrium is used to supply air to the offices at the side. Another atrium space, this time it's a factory in Freiburg, and I expect quite a number of the audience will know that Freiburg's been regarded for some time as the solar capital of Europe. It's the center for the International Solar Energy Society. It has its world center there, as well as the European regional center. So this is a factory in the fringes of a suburb of Freiburg called Vauban, and by Rolf and Hotz. And I put at the bottom stable door syndrome, because that sloping facade is 100% glass facade, but it's facing south. And as you can imagine, a lot of solar heat will come into this space, which seems counterintuitive. But the whole space is the public face of a factory that produces photovoltaic cells, and the company wanted to advertise them. So the advertisement is on the facade, in fact, in the form of photovoltaic panels acting as louvers to shade the facade. There's a second device, which is a labyrinth that delivers fresh air, an underground labyrinth delivering cooled fresh air, pre-cooled fresh air into the space. But I've been there a couple of times now in hot sunny afternoons, and in fact, it achieves something like a 10 degrees Celsius drop in temperature, from something circa 30 down to circa 20, or a bit over 30 to a bit over 20, but securing, surprisingly, comfort in that space. And this is a similar stable door type building in a sense. This is in Germany, the Rheinelbe Science Park, a building by Kiesler and Partners. This was part of a a much bigger project with several buildings, a whole regeneration of a post-industrial site. But actually, when I'm standing taking this photograph, you get the idea of in between, because if you can imagine me standing here, I'm in the floor space of the building, but my head is outside the building, so truly in between. And same sort of thing, we have a sloping face facing west in this instance, but on a sunny afternoon when the temperature outside is at its highest point, you're going to want to do something in order to cool down this space. So in this case, there are rooftop photovoltaic cells which actually shift up enormous, great big glazed panels, like sort of drawbridges going up. And so the whole of this edge next to water, which got evaporative cooling, you get this cool air coming in, and it does a really superb job in cooling the space down. So two examples of something that appears counterintuitive, but actually works quite well and serves its client well. Another atrium space, and in its time, this is the small arc, Kleine Arc in the south of Holland, which we had a visit to Holland right in the heart of quite a well-known heat wave in August 2003. In fact, sticks in my mind quite a bit because it really was hot. So the ambient temperature outside when we visited this building was well over 30. There was a max-min thermometer inside, so we could see the temperature at the time we were visiting was around about 40, nearly 50 actually. It was about 48 Celsius. So we're sort of, the space wasn't, in this case, this atrium space wasn't cooling naturally. It had opening windows at east and west ends. And then, of course, this was facing south to get the maximum gain on the photovoltaic cells. And so there's a considerable buildup of heat in this space. On the other hand, we spent the night in bedrooms, which are just off to the left of the picture, and which faced north. The main windows face north. So there was a lobby with the loo and so on, the shower space, and then into the bedroom facing north. And the bedrooms were perfectly comfortable. So we went and visited the bedrooms straight away from 48 here and found we're about 21, 22 in the bedrooms. So that was interesting. And in its time, it was the largest building integrated photovoltaic array of its time. The next one, again, we visited a number of years later, and 2003, this was 2009, 6 years later. This was still a building site at the time, but it had taken over the mantle of being the largest BIPV, building integrated photovoltaic building of its time. And in this case, the glass envelope encloses an entire further education campus. So it's a different order of outdoor space that's captured, no longer a relatively small outdoor space. It's a large amount of campus outdoors that are enclosed, and the buildings, the individual buildings, have to still be insulated, but they don't have to keep the rain out. And that, we never visited it except in this particular day. So it was a kind of working building site, but it was functioning as if it was finished at that point. And it was quite sunny weather, and it was quite interesting that the space was much more like captured outdoor space than an atrium space is. It was kind of closer to the ambient in terms of atmosphere, but nevertheless sheltered from excessive wind, sheltered from rain. So yes, largest BIPV of its time. And turning the clock back a bit in this particular one, which is interesting, I've moved north now into Norway, into Trondheim, back in 1992, so 7 years prior to the last slide. And this is a higher education campus at which we held, I think it was at the 5th or 6th North Sun Conference at Enerit in 1992, but it was the Scottish Solar Energy Group that founded the series of North Sun conferences that went on until 2007, in various high latitude locations. Just point out to you, this man here, Leslie Yesh, it was his idea to found a regional ISIS element in Europe, based in Europe. So it was the ISIS Europe, it was called, International. Don't get it muddled up with the terrorists ISIS. This was International Solar Energy Society. So yeah, so that was Leslie Yesh sitting there in a break between events in North Sun 1992, which is, people will recall, the same year as the Rio Earth Summit. Another one we visited 1996, I think, another European tour we did, the Eco House, or pronounced properly in German, I'm sure Beat could help me out, Eco House, or however it's pronounced, by Eblett and Sambeth in Frankfurt. A real swords to plowshare story where it was a post-industrial site, highly polluted, and the atrium was a working part of making this a very green building. And the last, or almost the last project I want to show you, it's in Holland. They have these, a bit like co-housing, hofjes. This is a Gravijn hofje in Haarlem, one of the old cities of Holland. And so they're all arranged around protective courtyards. So you have a microclimate. You can see I'm here on a sunny day. Again, this was visited actually by the Solar Energy Group during the heat wave of, so it's hot weather, the heat wave of 2003. It was maybe a couple of days after the previous building I showed you on that trip. And not only have you got a courtyard, but you have access decks, staggered access decks to the flats where the people live. And so you've got a sort of variety of climates. You've got a microclimate here, and the previous one, you've got a microclimate here. And in between, it's not a fully glazed facade. It's a bit like a semi-glazed sort of hedge, able to trap some solar heat and also to break the wind, which of course in other times, not this particular occasion, oh, pressed it the wrong way. It's going backwards. Sorry. There we are, back to here again. So yes, last slide, and I haven't been timing myself, but I'm roughly on 15 minutes. But this was skipping past because the co-housing was the clue to the second speaker in Hockerton. And this last slide is a building that Beat showed us, one of his early projects, Sunny Woods. And this is a balcony, so it's in itself an in-between space facing south, and the balustrading to the balcony is actually a solar thermal heat pipe system. I don't know if Beat was going to go that far back in his talk to come, but that's one of my fond memories of that trip. So that's the end of my presentation, so I'll leave it at that.
Thank you very much, Colin. Yes, I know I've been mixing up my words. I'll probably do that throughout the evening. I've also actually forgot to do something earlier when I was presenting the future events. We were going to try and do try to anyway do SEDA nights on Monday nights instead of Wednesday, and see how that goes. But I was also going to do a poll to see what times people would prefer. We had some feedback about the times of the times of the sessions being maybe a little too late in the evening for those who have children and all that sort of stuff. So you should be seeing a poll in front of you just now. And please do choose your favorite times. Whilst you're also doing that, I'd like to ask you to also put any questions into the chat, and it will help us sort of moderate questions and bring them up as and when the right time comes. So don't hold back in typing in your questions, and let us know if you've got any comments. So there's still people putting in poll times. Interesting. But not many people have actually done it. Well, or rather, not everybody has done it yet, I don't think. Most of them, 43, getting there. Sharing results. This seems to be actually the preferred time, despite suggestions that of otherwise. Right, so having done that, let's get back on track. Simon Tilley is up next. And give you a proper introduction whilst Simon shares the screen if he wants to, or whatever, he's doing some fancy video showing. Simon is a chartered mechanical engineer and joined Hockerton Housing Project in 1995 after a background in manufacturing and overseas sustainable development work, including 3 years in Namibia, setting up district hospitals with voluntary services overseas. Within the cooperative business, he focuses on low-impact, affordable, earth-sheltered housing. He's also passionate about supporting local sustainable developments with a particular focus on community-owned renewable energy systems. He lectures on innovations in energy at Nottingham Trent University. Simon designed and implemented the autonomous renewable energy and water systems at Hockerton Housing Project. He is now the director as well as operations manager for the community renewable systems. So without further ado, Simon.
Okay, yes, now can you see me? I do, I can't, I think you've got control of the screen at the moment, but if you let me, how's that? Can you see me?
I think it was Colin. Okay, it's fine. You should be able to do it now.
Marvelous. Okay, well, I'm here, and thank you for being there in this strange sort of new way we do things. Lots of little boxes and people I can see. I've got a plan to talk about where I live, which is this house I'm in, and I've got 2 short videos to sort of give you a tour when it's daylight, and one to talk about just the house, and one to talk about how the house works in terms of its performance. And I'm going to be relatively challenging, I suppose, hopefully stimulating some questions, so do throw them in the chat box. And I'm trying to, I suppose, fly the flag in this case for thermal mass in the design of houses, to sort of show the benefits of it. And I suppose we came here thinking about sustainable development as a group of 5 families, and built, first of all, very low energy houses, and then did all the other things around the site, which were things like growing food and producing our own energy with wind turbines and photovoltaic panels. And what has struck me over the years is, so we've been living in the houses for 20 years, is that it's actually the people that live in them that make all the difference. So however clever we are with our design of house, it's going to fail unless we have people living in them that want it to succeed. And this is quite a thing, because it's more about the people than the place, really. So you know, if I left all my doors open, it would cool down in this building, because you just let in the cold air. And so just as a simple example, you've got to work with the building to make it perform well. And I hope we have, as a society, clicked to the fact that we need to actually change our behaviour generally to continue living on the planet, which is quite a thing, isn't it? But we are at the point where we do need to do that. So let me just give you a short tour, if I may, of the house by showing you a slide. And this will be kind of an introduction. And what I'm going to do is start a video tour and then share my screen. So I'm going to get that going and then come out of it and hopefully come back into Zoom, and then I'll share my screen. This will stop, yes. So I'm going to go here and share this, and hopefully now you can see this. And if I press play.
This is the conservatory on the front of one of our houses, and it's a really important part of the house. It's basically the buffer zone. Sounds a bit odd calling it a buffer zone, but it's a fantastic place to live in. We've got this wonderful space, and it's very important in terms of the energy, because the sun's energy comes in and it's the way it gets into the house. It kind of protects the house. We also collect water on the roof, and we grow plants and things in here. So it's a multi-use space, really demonstrating how sustainability in action, really demonstrating that you use a space in multiple ways to give you multiple benefits. I'll now come into the house proper and into the kitchen. And this is a lovely space, has a very high ceiling, has tiled floors, and I can feel it's lovely and warm, which of course it's difficult for you to sense, but trust me, it is. And it's a different sort of warmth. It's all round. So we've had to solve a problem with the energy supply from the sun, and that the sun's not always there. So key problem with lots of renewables, variable supply. And to balance that supply out, we actually store heat within the building fabric itself. So the walls, the floor and the ceiling are all what we call high thermal mass, basically concrete blocks or concrete, and they are completely surrounded by a insulating layer with no cold bridges. And that enables us to store the excess heat in the summer for much later in the year. And that way we even out the temperature in the room from summer to winter. So that's, you know, really, really good. It means we haven't got a space heating system. As you can see, we haven't got any radiators. We're just using either the sun's energy or the stored sun's energy to keep the house warm. And a bit of body heat and waste heat, say from cookers and appliances. There is an issue with doing this in that we kind of have to seal the house up to keep the heat in, so we do have to ventilate it. And you can see ventilation pipes here, which there are two, there's one in and out. And I'll show you in a minute the trick with that system too. So yeah, a great place to live.
So there we go. That's I will stop sharing there and just talk about what we've just seen there. So that was obviously on a sunny day. We're now in the depths of winter and it's quite colder out, much colder outside, and it's still warm in here. I'm still getting the heat from that sunny day released back into this house. I just say that we're in Nottinghamshire, so kind of in the middle of England. And the period we're looking at is the whole year. And I've got some graphs later to show you how the thermal mass performs over that kind of time scale, which I think is really interesting. And but what I wanted to emphasize was that this only works, which I didn't mention in that video, if we have enough insulation on the outside of the thermal mass. So passive design is great, and you can get kind of 80% of the way in terms of saving energy with just insulation. And then adding in the mass, I feel, sort of helps that last little bit to cover the times when the sun's gone and you need to get energy from somewhere and you get it back out of the thermal mass. But that energy will have leaked away out of the mass unless you have got a lot of insulation on the outside, and not just insulation, of course. So you've got to avoid any cold bridges, so that the things that might, by mistake, in inverted commas, go across the insulation layer. So that might be a wall tie made out of steel. You've got to get rid of all of those. And of course, you know, the basic things like airtight design. So we have a very airtight house. We're underground. We've got a great big plastic bag around us. We're very well sealed. We've got wet plaster, which kind of fills all the gaps. And that means the air can't leak out with uncontrolled ventilation. So that trick that I just mentioned there was only putting in a heat exchanger in the ventilation system. You know, it's not really a trick, is it? But it is the thing that we're going to have to find more familiar, or become more familiar with, because as we seal up houses, we do need to keep the air fresh and keep them ventilated well. So that's kind of a key extra bit of technology, perhaps, that we're going to have to think about it. And it is so important, because dragging in just cold air to keep the house fresh would be horribly difficult to deal with in terms of the heat, because you know you're changing the air in this house every 4 hours or so. So that's like the whole of the house shifted outside and a whole lot of new air brought in. So that new air coming in, we can make warm by heating up with the warm air going out with a simple heat exchanger. So it's a very easy bit of technology, but makes a fantastic difference to the house where I'm sitting. Yeah, that was a little sort of introduction to inside the house. I've now got another short video which I will get going, which is a little bit more on the thermal mass, which I've been calling a heat battery. So and I think the reason I've started to call it a heat battery is because the thermal mass is a bit of a technical term, and I don't think people fully understand it. And actually, the trendy zeitgeist in terms of talking about storage at the moment is batteries. You know, everybody's thinking about electrical batteries. Well, actually, storing heat's so much easier, and it's so much cleaner in terms of the battery, and it's so much easier to achieve, and stores massive amounts more energy. And so I've started trying to refer to thermal mass things as heat batteries, because I think that's kind of a more user-friendly way to describe them. Sorry if you're seeing my emails come in there. That's not ideal, is it? But let's just share this video. So this is another short clip of.
We're back at Hockerton Housing Project with resident Simon Tilley to explain the construction of their homes and how they use thermal mass to stay warm.
I want to think about how we keep our houses warm when we are using passive solar gains like the sunshine and body heat. With these type of gains, we have energy coming in intermittent, sporadic patterns. So it's not sunny all the time. It's not sunny at night. It's more sunny in the summer. It's less sunny in the winter, and we need to overcome that if we want to keep the house at a nice even temperature.
To overcome this, the homes at Hockerton Housing Project use a layer of concrete 465mm thick, referred to later as a heat battery by Simon. This is followed by 320mm of polystyrene insulation, which is then covered by soil to reduce the visual impact of the homes and act as a temperature buffer due to the soil's insulation properties.
And the heat battery is basically concrete, in this case illustrated by a very dense brick. And when you have the two together, the energy within the house, so in this configuration the house is here, actually it's the walls of the house that are made of the concrete, outside the house is the insulation, and then you've got the earth on the bank. And so the energy stored in the mass, the brick in this case, can't escape through the polystyrene because that's a very good resistor for stopping heat escaping, but it can go back into the house. And so this acts as an energy store, so that like a heat battery, so that we can keep the house warm in the winter with the stored energy from the summer sun.
Everyone seems to enjoy living at the houses here, and the concept of thermal mass must work for the houses to stay warm. But the energy rating of the houses are very low, and the concept of using thermal mass may not be fully accepted.
Is this idea of using thermal mass to reduce our energy needs universally accepted? Unfortunately not, even though we have an award, the National Energy Efficiency Awards, for our houses. The idea hasn't been accepted. So if you have a SAP calculation done, which is the standard way of assessing a house, the figure is actually fairly low, which is extraordinary really. And it really comes down to physics. What you have to realise is thermal mass works if you have enough insulation on the outside of the house. And it has to be that combination. So a very large amount of thermal mass, or a heat battery as I like to call it, and a lot of insulation on the outside of it. And then the heat store works for you and is very successful. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to check out our website. There's lots of good free information on there too. We've got tours you can come on if you want to have a look around for real. We do design advice to help you with things like building your own house. And you can even come and hire our facility there, the resource centre, and run your own event. Come and visit Hockenham Housing Project!
I thought I'd just let it run to the end there so you could see the mad time we have here, which is you know, got to have fun every now and then, haven't you? And that's the drawings of those are actually built there. We've built there's 9 houses built at the top, which are using the same principles but are 2-storey terraced housing. So that's quite nice to have locally, just up the road. So yeah, that maybe laboured the point, but I think it's quite interesting to you know, consider thermal mass, and you know, concrete isn't the only way to do it, because obviously concrete has its own issues. There's a lot of embodied energy in concrete. So I suppose I justify the house here by saying we are using energy to make concrete, but that's offsetting energy use while we're living in the house. And it takes, compared to a lightweight house, it takes about 16 years. And then we're into credit. But I recognise that actually releasing any carbon at the moment into the atmosphere is something we have to really think very carefully about. We don't have the luxury really of allowing that. So we need to find ways of making thermal mass work without using a lot of energy. So that's either looking at zero carbon concrete, which can be made in different ways, you know, changing the aggregates, changing the way the cement's used, using renewable energy to make the cement in the first place, or using different materials. Again, now this is kind of for the second generation, I think, of high thermal mass houses, is to crack that one. So we do the thermal mass, but don't have the heat input and the carbon released when we're building. So that's that challenge. And what I've got. So do put questions in the chat box if you want to. Ask questions, and we'll come back to those in a minute. I've just got another thing I want to show you, which is some of the analysis we've done over the years. So I've been living in this house for 20 years, and we've had various sort of analysis going on. I've got some more sophisticated analysis going along in this back wall at the moment, where I've drilled holes. So I'm measuring the surface temperature in 100 mil and 200 mil and 350 mil. The wall's 450 mil deep. So I'm getting that every half hour, the change in temperature through the thickness of the mass, to see how that works. But what I'll do now is share with you one of the documents that we have. He says confidently, and that I haven't got it open, but let me just, yes, I have. So it's there somewhere. Let me just go and open it up, and then when I share my screen, I should be able to find it. Where is it? Very frustrating. Sorry about this. So what I'm show. Oh, there it is. Show all windows. It's a bit further down. Right, now hopefully you've got this. So this is a I'm just going to move that out of the way. I don't know why I'm only getting half of that there. I don't want to update now. Thank you very much. There we go. That's what it is. Okay, so there's that cross section of the house. you can see we've got a concrete box surrounded by a polystyrene box, and it's that concrete that's acting as the heat store. It's completely thermally isolated from the conservatory. We've been looking at the energy and the temperatures in that mass, and we recorded the temperature of the mass over a 4-year period. So these figures are actually for 1998 to 2002. And you can see inside air temperature and the slab temperature and how closely they follow each other. We've also got so we've collected that data, and we've tried to analyze it again. So this, just very quickly, is the outdoor air temperature, and you can see how much more varied this is, and how much more stable the inside temperature is. Obviously it does warm up inside in the summer, and it does cool off in the winter, but only relatively slowly. And what we've tried to look at here is the net heat flow from the slab. So looking at when the slab's giving out heat and when the slab's taking it in, and then looking at that. So from the summer, it starts, as we go into the cooler period, it gives out heat and the mass cools down. And then in the summer, the mass warms up slowly. But on a daily basis, it's actually always also flows, because you've got the diurnal variation of day and night. We get energy flowing in and out of the slab day and night, but we also get this change over time, over the whole 6 months, or well, whole year, but in this cycle here. And so that energy, if we add it all up, the energy that comes out into the building is about 6,000 kilowatt hours, which means for every degree of temperature reduction, we release 65 kilowatt hours of energy into the building. And if you do that per month instead of per day, you can see we release heat and gain heat at different times of the season. It just and this graph here is fairly interesting in that you can see we go a little bit higher in the summer, we go a little bit higher in the winter. The slab does about the same thing, but outside temperature is massively variable compared to the inside temperature. We've got a whole load of discussion there. So that's just kind of very quickly looking at some of the data we've collected and how it works. But as I said right at the beginning, although this house is pretty good at being abused, it does still rely on us, saving energy by keeping the doors shut. And in reality, most of the energy we consume isn't in these 4 walls anyway. It's our lifestyles. It's where we buy our food. It's where we go on holiday. It's how we travel about. And obviously we need to build houses properly, but we've also got to consider all those external elements to the house to really change how we're going to tackle climate change, and that's really a big shift, I think, in our thinking. So yeah, there you go. That's a very quick run through of Hockerton Housing Project and my thoughts on thermal mass. So I don't know whether I see it looks like there might be some chats in the chat box.
There is definitely a number of chat questions. So I think what I'll do is work backwards. We'll start with Simon and then go back to Colin, if that's okay, since everybody's so fresh in their minds with Simon. So there is a question about if you're going to do Hockerton again now, what would you do differently, and maybe would you use different materials?
Okay, so yes, there's several things. I think basically it works. Wouldn't do much different. There's 2 things. So yes, different materials in that I would consider using lower embodied energy concrete somehow. But the other thing, we did put heat pumps in, and controversially, I would definitely leave out the heat pumps. We didn't have heat pumps for space heating. We used heat pumps for the hot water, and all of them have gone wrong. They all went wrong between 8 and 10 years old, and nobody's replaced them, because the replacement is now much more straightforward, which is photovoltaic panels and an immersion heater. So that's what we've done subsequently, is put more PV on the roof and just have a straight immersion heater. Lower embodied energy in the construction, no risk of escaping gases from the poor, when you get rid of a heat pump and it gets broken and all the gas comes out, nightmare, and much simpler.
And have you still got the wind generator, Simon, if I can just chip in there?
Yes, yes. So we've got the two wind turbines up and running, and we've now got 3 sets of PV on site. But partly we added generation because we've started getting electric cars. And although that means you're not buying diesel, it does mean our on-site electrical consumption's gone up. So my wife's electric car is about equivalent to 50% of the house. And she only does 15 miles to work and back, or 15 miles there and 15 miles back, so 30 miles a day. And so, you know, it's quite a big, relative to the house, it's, you know, adding 50%. So we've been desperately trying to put in more production.
So there is another one about, you've already covered about thermal mass with lower embodied energy. I think there's also another actually participant saying that you can use stone or clay bricks and things like that for that as well. There's also another question about what do you think about the project 2226 using similar to your house, but instead of mechanical ventilation use and heat exchanger, there's control of the temperature just using windows and using detectors and actuators. I think we were just talking about that before with Beat and Colin about that project. Do you think that is something that you would consider?
I think in commercial situations, it is very different to domestic houses. And I don't think there's anything wrong with having ways of opening windows automatically. But I think, you know, if you're living in a house, you just can open the window. I've tried to simplify everything wherever I can, because being a mechanical engineer, I happen to know that most mechanical things go wrong. And it's better to leave them out if you possibly can. So I'm more in favor of opening a window and shutting it. But, you know, there is a place for ventilating, but you definitely still need, in a house, you definitely still need a heat exchanger for the winter when you've got everything shut up. You know, there's no doubt about that. You need that. You need some sort of heat recovery on the exiting air.
So there's another one from Andy. If PV was used with immersion tank, why was that preferable to replacing the heat pump with solar thermal?
Well, a heat pump's £6,000. Immersion heat is £18. So, you know, big difference in price. The embodied energy in the immersion heater is tiny compared to the embodied energy in the heat pump. The materials used to make the heat pump work, i.e. the refrigerant gas, is a very, very potent greenhouse gas. So if it ever leaks out, you're in really big trouble. And even in standard operation, they do leak a bit. So if you look at the embodied energy of a heat pump, quite a lot of it is that gas which gets out. You've also got to make it, of course. And if you super insulate your hot water tank, which we've done here, so let's not have 80 millimeters, let's have 200 millimeters around your hot tank. That's where we've got to get to. And then you find your energy for hot water has gone right down. So we only use 4 kilowatt hours a day of hot water. Now, if you're using a heat pump to deliver 4 kilowatt hours a day costing £5,000, that's a big expenditure. And actually, if you use an immersion heater, okay, it's not as efficient as a heat pump, I admit, but you only need a couple more PV panels and you'll generate that energy. And PV panels have come down in price so much. They're a tenth of what we paid for when we first put them up. So, you know, they're much cheaper than a heat pump.
Would you consider using a phase change heat battery nowadays in a more new configuration?
Oh, yeah. Now I'm really excited by those, but yes and no, because the ones I've seen use a heat pump in them. So if we can get it simpler, then yes, I think that's quite an interesting concept for hot water. But again, you're going to have to really consider, I've got a hot tank full of water, which does the job. And so is a phase change material going to be more environmentally friendly in the whole? You know, water's very benign, and all I need is a big tank of it. It's very cheap. Is a phase change material going to be as cheap and benign? So those are the kind of questions I'll be thinking about. But interesting.
And there's another one about labyrinth ventilation. Do you think that would actually allow deeper plans?
The ventilation, I think, isn't limiting factor for the deeper plan. The deeper plan here, I'm at the back of the house now, is more about the light coming from the window and in. So about 6 meters, 7 meters is about as far as you can go and successfully use the light from the windows, I suppose. Ventilation, but ventilation in other ways, using clever ways to make the ventilation work more efficiently, I think there's a lot of scope there. You know, we're at 80, 90% maybe on the heat exchangers, but we could get better than that. And I think that's much more important, is capturing that, you know, capturing that potential heat loss.
That's grand. So moving back to questions for Colin, I think this wasn't particularly, I'll do one that's definitely for you. So that's from David, actually. Great schemes, Colin. Just the other end of the equation. How warm are those spaces in winter? Presumably there are figures on that too.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that fully, because we visited these buildings in the summer, but obviously, yeah, I mean, if you take the one that I was saying was at 48, and undoubtedly it'll get quite a lot cooler, but it'll always be warmer than the ambient temperature in the coldest of winter. And I mean, I've been involved with monitoring domestic sun spaces, a bit like Hawkerton, and it's amazing how the sort of average sun space temperature or buffer space temperature works at sort of between the ambient temperature and the indoor temperature, roughly halfway between. So you still get a reasonable, depending on what activities you're thinking about doing, maybe not for sort of lying back in a deck chair in the middle of winter, but if you're just pottering about, absolutely fine. And we have to relate these spaces to the kind of activity that's expected. The one in Trondheim was interesting because that was designed to only be, it had heating actually in it, in the glazed spaces in between the main buildings. And they were designed only to be heated to 12 degrees Celsius, but the spaces were so popular, they actually decided to heat them higher. And of course, then their energy bill went soaring up. So I've recounted some of the figures for those in that second book that Gloria mentioned, the solar architecture and cool climates.
So Drew is asking about the PV filigree must be dithering the solar gains. So were conclusions drawn as to where they are best placed relative to the passive gains and quality of light in the deeper parts of the building? Yeah,
I mean, basically, the idea is that they will provide some shade at the same time as collecting energy. And they do provide some shade, quite a pleasant atmosphere. So in both the, well, no, there were 3 examples I showed with that atria, with that kind of spaced out photovoltaic cell arrangement in the roof glazing. And they all work quite well. They let enough light in, but they don't let as much heat in, but still, like the one in the South Holland, the one by Bayer Architects, the little arc, obviously did overheat, and that was because the only glazing that could open was at each end rather than the glazing at the highest part of the roof. So you've got to think these things through. I mean, it's often forgotten about with sun spaces that they really want low-level glazing to let air in and high-level glazing to let it out.
So one last question before we move on to our keynote speaker. Nick asks, what effect, if any, did the surrounding materials have on the thermal performance of the glazed spaces?
Yeah, quite big. I mean, with a very lightweight, they'll heat up much faster. At the very heavyweight, they'll stay reasonably steady. So it's the same thermal mass issue that Simon was talking about.
Great. time is kind of running on, so I think I shall introduce Beat while he gets his presentation on show. Beat Kampfen has been an architect since 1982, director of Kampfen for Architecture, which has recently become Kampfen Zinke and Partner. Beat is known to be at the forefront of solar design and in applying research to his projects, which are of the highest standard, Minergie standards, similar system to Passive House in Switzerland. Beat has won many energy and solar prizes, both for his projects as well as personal awards. He holds a number of highly regarded positions on boards of solar and energy forums and advisory panels. Beat taught as a distinguished professor at Kansas State University in 2013 and has been leading Solar Decathlon and other programs in training the next generation of architects over the span of the last 2 decades. With many of his built examples, he will show us the importance of the architectural integration of all 3 dimensions of solar: passive, thermal, photovoltaic, the climatic concept as basic formal choices, and the chances technical devices give to the design. Over to you, Beat.
Thank you. Hello, I try to open my... Yes. So, can you see my slides now?
We're seeing your folder. I think you have to stop share and share again, just share the actual file again. I think you might have chosen the wrong window.
And now, is it better now?
Share, share again.
I have to open it. Do you see my desktop now?
Yep, I see your desktop.
Yeah. Now the desktop, and this is it. So, do you see it now?
I think it's coming. It's just blank at the moment.
Yeah. Your screen sharing was interrupted. It is written here.
Oh, that's strange. It was working earlier.
Yeah. I try it again.
Is your I would open the, yes, that's it. Got it.
That's it. Good. Okay. So very nice to talk to you this evening. I have seen your very ambitious audience, and so I will try to show you the interaction of solar and architecture. Primarily, I'm an architect, but I think I have to use the new possibilities of solar. And Colin showed one slide with these balcony railings. This was let's say, one of my first buildings 20 years ago, where I really focused on ecology, sustainability, energy efficiency, and solar. And since then, all our buildings, whether they are new constructions or remodelings, focus on these themes. And I think this is just the way we have to do it nowadays. So, I think the passive solar energy is the most important thing. It is the biggest amount of energy we can use. And then it's always the primer energy. This is a small house in the mountains a little bit, so it's on 900 meters above sea level, and so it works completely without heating. There is no heating system for this house, and it always stays comfortably, more or less, except we have really foggy periods, like now when the temperature is 0 or below 0, and we have very thick fog above us, which is by chance, which is seldom at 900 meters above ground. If we have 2 or 3 hours, if we have 2 hours of sun every day, then the temperature is always 22, 23 degrees in this house. For foggy periods, we have this little stove here. It heats up this room and it heats up the room below. This goes very slow. So, the second energy is always solar thermal. And here is a panel. For this house, it is only necessary for the hot domestic water, because we don't have any heating system. And you see, before we have seen this living room up here. Down there are 4 bedrooms, and it doesn't matter when the bedrooms are a little bit cooler, let's say 18 degrees, and up there we may have 22. Passive solar is always shading. Shading is the second important thing of the south facade. This house is oriented exactly south facade. And then third, we have photovoltaics. I'm using photovoltaics now for 22 years in many buildings, or in almost all buildings. And you see this roof here is ideally inclined, about 12 degrees. So we have a really very, very big production of electricity, and it's a surplus energy. In this house, it is all surplus energy is fed to the grid. We started now to load, to put it into batteries and to have intelligent steering systems. All our buildings are built in wood. This is maybe another very important thing to have a low gray energy, but also to have a very highly insulated building envelope. These slides show that the importance of the south facade. You see the solar radiation on a horizontal panel. So you have direct radiation and you have global radiation. And so these are the months here from January to December. So you see a big peak in summer compared to I go first down, look here, east or west. And east or west facade, you have a big peak in summer and almost no energy in January and in December. So you have a lot of energy then when you don't need it. And that's the difference with the south-oriented facade. First, this radiation is more or less horizontal. You see here, direct radiation is almost horizontal. Of course, in January, in December, it is lower than in other times, but it is much better than here. You have much more sun. And also during the day, it is better, you have a better curve than on east or west. Of course, on north, you have a little bit, but not too much. So, no, okay. This is an office building for an international company we built in 2007. This is a very programmatic building. There we really looked, this is exactly the south facade. East, north facade are highly insulated. We have a roof inclined also about 10 degrees, covered with photovoltaics. And the thing I want to show you here is normally in office buildings, we have too much glass. We all work on computers nowadays, and so it isn't too much glass, too much sun isn't very good to work. And so we decided that we had 50% of the facade is an phase change material, which is a translucent material. It is water designed with a salt so that the freezing temperature is not 0 degree, but is plus 26 degrees. So in the morning, this panel, it's a 2 centimeters panel with this water in it. Then you have 3-layer triple glazing on the outside and one panel of glass on the inside. So in the morning, this will be frozen, then the sun shines on it, then it becomes water. So energy of the sun is stored into this water, and at night or in the evening, it is freezing again, and then this energy which was stored during the day will be released again. And because we have on the inside 1 panel, on the outside 3 panels of glass, the energy moves from the outside to the inside of the room. So with a very simple material and a very simple trick, we can move solar energy from day to night time. This is all about, so it gives a bigger comfort to the workers here inside, and also it protects towards glaring. So it's a very, very nice and interesting material, because all the day it looks also a little bit different. It can be very clear or it can be very crystalline. So this is a very interesting working environment, which is changing, and at the same time it produces energy. So and this is probably one thing that I like to introduce in my buildings, that it is not only energy, but it is always architecture or art, even in this case. These are condominiums on a very nice location, high price location, but there are apartments to rent. So simple apartments which are not too large. And you see here PEB stands for Plus Energy Building. I don't know whether you're familiar with this term. In Switzerland, this is a term for positive energy balance. And then I want to explain this Minergie P-Eco. Minergie stands for low energy building, P for passive. So this is comparable to the passive house standard in Germany. The standard is a little bit more ambitious in Switzerland. So Minergie P is a little bit lower energy than passive house in Germany, but it's comparable how it is calculated. And then the eco means ecological. So it's an ecological building, and this will say the production of the materials, the transportation to the building site as an ecological good value. And also it doesn't, an eco building isn't harmful to the residents inside the building. So human health is also an aspect of eco standard. So most of our buildings are labeled Minergie P Eco. It's the highest standard you can get in Switzerland. So this is southeast and southwest facade. Of course, we like to have open rooms, a lot of glass. And when you have a lot of glass, you need to have thermal mass in the inside. This is normally the floor here in our buildings because it's all wooden buildings, so we don't have too much thermal mass in the walls. We have a lot of glass open, and so we need to have good, thick floors, which normally are wooden ceilings, but then on top of it, we put about 10 centimeters of concrete. You see, all the south facade is more or less glazed. So this, again, this shading devices is something very important. This is 20, there are 20 condominiums. They are all 2-story apartments. So this apartment here has living room up here. These are 4 bedrooms on this floor, 3 to the south side, 1 to the north side. This is another apartment with 3 bedrooms on this level and the living room to the garden. So it is in a dense situation. One apartment has a little garden, the other apartment has a little roof terrace. We also have had staircases outside so that we don't have any staircases. So every apartment has its own door. There are like little houses. On this, this is also very programmatic here, the south facade with glass. Here a little bit less glass because for fear of overheating in summer. And this is the north facade, so this is very programmatic. This is bathroom, kitchen, and so on. These are the entrances from this open staircase, entrances to the apartments. On the roof here again, this is all photovoltaics on this house, tilted 12 degrees. Here on this house, also tilted 12 degrees. This is all solar thermal. So all this first thing is maximizing solar gains, minimizing energy losses through very thick insulation. Insulation in our cases are in between 30 and 40 centimeters for facades of glass wool or rock wool. In the roof, we normally have 35 to 45 centimeters of glass wool. Maybe I go back on the roof terraces. There you have always a little bit problems with heat bridges. There we use new materials like vacuum insulations or aerogel insulation. Expensive materials, so you can use them only on specific locations. The section of this house, you see this photovoltaic, completely integrated photovoltaic instead of tiles. And when we don't have photovoltaics on the roof, then the roof is green. They never have something like this, tiles. I think this is really not appropriate anymore to use tiles or to put gravel on a roof. So it's either green or it's energy producing. Energy system of most our houses. So we have passive solar as an important thing. Then we have solar thermal somewhere. Then we have geothermal system below the house, and then we have 1 or 2 heat pumps. Here it is 2 heat pumps for the all 20 apartments, so that these collectors here, they go first into a tank, hot water tank here, and for these 20 apartments it is 15,000 liter of water. This water is also heated by the heat pump, so that you have the hot domestic water or floor heating system. When we have too much energy here, we have always in the floor heating system this free cooling. So since 2007, all my houses have free cooling systems, so that you can put back in summertime the heat of your temperature of your apartment down in the geothermal system. So this is regenerated in summer, that you have a higher level in winter. Energy balance of these 20 apartments, you see here the small, this was the consumption calculated. You see the hot domestic water and heating is this. Ventilation needs, this is electricity all, and the household electricity is always about at least 50%, or the same amount as the electricity for the building technical systems. Of course, this was calculated, this was the consumption after 2 years. So people didn't like to have it a little bit warmer than this is 20 degree inside temperature. This is probably 23 degrees inside temperature. They have a bit little, they cook more, they have bigger TV screens and so on. So they use, and this is in all our buildings, they finally use more energy than than what was planned. But I have also to say we had the data of every apartment, and the differences here are enormous. They can be 100% difference in energy from one apartment to the other, not only household, but also for the whole thing. PV production was calculated the same amount. This was planned like this. And by chance, PV production is much bigger too than planned. So we are up here. We're a little bit, just a little bit over the consumption. So it's a plus energy buildings, and this is controlled every year. So I can really say it is a plus energy. This is more, but also this is more. It takes a little bit time. Okay. Also a building, this was planned as a plus energy building, highly insulated. There are 3 apartments, a little bit complicatedly arranged. One apartment makes this, the other one makes this, and the third one is down here. So very interesting interior organization of the rooms. And so this is almost a cube, photovoltaics on the roof, almost flat. And then we have here vacuum tubes, the same as Colin showed before. This is the south facade, this is the west facade. So a huge amount of vacuum pipes which are producing hot water, and the water can get up to 90, 100 degrees in these tubes. The tubes have a diameter of about 11 centimeters. They have a vacuum inside, and then there's a small copper tube of like thumb, and then there's a blind, this thing, an absorber here of copper. So you can actually you can twist this blind to the optimal orientation here about 45 degrees. The advantage is you can have these vacuum pipes either horizontally on the roof or vertically on a facade, and you will have the same amount of hot water. For me, interesting was here, how can you make a room, a nice room, a balcony with new materials? And you get a very specific, very special atmosphere in this room. And I think this is the interesting thing. How can you connect architecture with energy? A quite recent building. This is an all photovoltaic concept. So in this building, we don't have any solar thermal, and all these panels here, this is all photovoltaics. You see here the south facade, again, of course, solar passive. And this is the design of our photovoltaics. We didn't want it to have an all black building. The black squares you see here, the squares have a dimension of 4 by 4 millimeters. The black squares are, you see directly the photovoltaic cell, and all the colored squares is a painting, digital painting, ceramic painting on the back side of the glass. So we covered 50% of the cells by color, but this color is transparent. And it was a very interesting design process. We mixed this on our computer. We sent it to the photovoltaic engineer, to the manufacturer, a firm in Belgium, and then they changed it and they said less white, more red, and so on. And so this was a very creative process. And finally, we had produced about 8 examples, 8 modules, which were all tested. And the difference from the all black module, which will be 100%, so we achieved 82%. So we have a loss of 18% of electricity for a nicer architecture, nicer color of the building. And I think this is worth. We don't want to have all black or all blue buildings. So you see here, all the facade, including the north facade here, is the same modules. We have 15 different sizes, and they are arranged randomly so that it doesn't look so technical, but there are only 15 different sizes. And also the roof is completely photovoltaic. Here we have standard black modules. So this house as well is by far a plus energy building. There are 6 apartments in it. You see here the production of the different facades, north, west, east, and south. South facade is a little bit, unfortunately, not very big, as you have seen, because on the south facade, you want to have as well the balconies, the large windows, and so on. So still, the largest amount is the roof. And this is what the building needs. Here we have installed 30 kilowatt hours of battery, so that also we can move solar energy into the night or to the next day. And we also have a very intelligent system who organizes the washing machine, the heating system, and so on, to lower this here and to store solar energy. But of course, you cannot store solar energy from summer to winter for the moment. A very recent building built last year. Is the same concept. This is south facade. You see large windows. You see here from the inside, the windows look larger than from the outside, because here behind are always the openings, so that you can open the windows. These panels you cannot open. And here on the roof is photovoltaic, and this is a bit special. This is also photovoltaic canopies, where we had made an experiment with photovoltaic, which has little holes in it. Yeah, so it is, there are little holes, and so it produces, of course, also a little bit less energy, but we thought that we wanted to have enough light behind there. We had a bit, well, we thought it could become too dark in the living room behind this roof. So this is an experiment, and it works very well. This is an Austrian firm made these photovoltaic panels. So we are interconnected with whole Europe producing these buildings. Of course, this house has also solar thermal. This is the west facade or southwest facade. This is not oriented exactly the best way, but it doesn't matter. This is the orientation to the street, and this here was the orientation to the garden. So yeah, it's always also an compromise. We have to make compromises between architecture and energy, and so yeah, architecture for me is architectural design is even more important, I would say. So it's for me okay if when this is not oriented just the perfect way, but well, perfect way, we could have made it maybe a little bit smaller, but this doesn't matter. I want to show you now two remodelings. Houses built 1965. These two are exactly the same. This was renovated 1988. Unfortunately, not very nicely. And now we could change it completely. So this is new up there. And the old balconies are here behind. So we made the balconies, these balconies, to the living room, put them to the living room, and we added new balconies to the side so that we don't have any thermal bridges anymore. And of course, again, this is all timber construction. This up here is all timber construction. Advantage of timber construction is that the insulation is much easier to introduce, and these are all prefabricated elements. So this would be one element almost completely produced in factory. This here were two elements, one of this size. It's the dimension of what you can do is what you can transport by a truck. The section you see, black old, red new. Interesting is this roof. So this is east, northeast even, and this is southwest. And this is all photovoltaics. Here we have a little bit of solar thermal also. Of course, again, this isn't heat pump and geothermal energy. Here, this is a very new system to make windows in roofs. So you don't see them anymore. They fit perfectly with the photovoltaics, and you don't have any wood on the roof because this is very exposed to the rain And so this is all glass. You just have only glass on the outside, as is the photovoltaic, so it's completely glass roof. Up here is the ventilation of this roof here, so that it is so that the air can go out and you don't have any overheating. This is the north facade. It looks like a completely new house, but it is a renovation, which has a big advantage in matter of gray energy. So we should renovate more than building new, and because gray energy is much better in a renovated, much lower for renovation, of course, than if you would deteriorate, put down the old house and build completely new. Another very interesting house built in 1970, 46 apartments, very small apartments of about 24 square meters. Each window here is an apartment, very tiny apartments. This is the south facade. This is all concrete. Only insulation was 2 centimeters of cork on the inside. And almost nothing. This house used 30,000 liters of oil per year. And this we could lower dramatically. It wouldn't have been possible to make something new because of very complicated ownership. Below there's a store, and this basement belongs to somebody else than this house. So it wouldn't have been impossible to deteriorate this house and build something new. This is what we made. We could add 1 story, and 1 story, you see it here. So it is 1 story more. This was the same corner. We kept these balcony railings in concrete because they had a nice expression. They were some kind of nice reminders of the 70s. And this here is now an old thermal concept. Of course, up here we have passive solar. Down here, almost nothing because the balconies are rather deep. And this is 180 square meters to the south, 60 square meters to west, and 60 square meters to east. So it's a very, very thermal, solar thermal concept. And in the middle of the house, we had the possibility to introduce a water tank. And this water tank has 20,000 liters. It has a height of 20 meters. And there you see it here. Hot water is introduced on different levels. Here the introduction of this tank in the house during construction. So it is a very large piece, but it works very, very well. And it is fed by these solar collectors, which have a new glass. This is a glass which was invented by the ETH Lausanne. And there's a coating on it, which makes that the glass appears in a bronze tone, or can change to silver, but it's also, again, it is not black. By this measure, by this coating, we may lose 7–8% of the possible energy. The added story, completely in wood, it's also a thing of load bearing, of weight you add on this building, so that wood is of course very light, unheavy, and so it is very easy. Here we just have wood for for the ceiling, the walls, and the cement floor, just rough cement as a floor. And this is the energy balance of before the house, not for the apartments, but just for the technical equipment of the house. Before, we used 30,000 liters of oil to burn. Now the building is 20% larger, and this is the energy which is used now for the whole building. So this was before 300,000 kilowatt hours per year. Now it could be reduced to 100,000 kilowatt hours per year. And this is the heat pump. So this is energy, this is electricity. So this can be reduced by a factor of 4. So this is electricity we need, and this is the electricity we produce on the house. I didn't show you this picture. On the roof, there's a photovoltaic installation. So it is a plus energy house for the building equipment, not for the apartments. This here is called Minergie A. Minergie A means Minergie Active as a differentiation to Minergie P. Minergie A because the insulation is less good, so we lose more energy, but we have more active elements. Now we have again a problem for the next slide. Yeah, overall sustainability is the theme of these 30 apartments in 2 houses. There's a net zero energy building, Minergie P Eco as well, and you'll see it here. Here we reduced the windows a little bit, so this matter of overheating in summer. And then very important, we have balconies, shading the windows. We have blinds here, you see them here. And then we have a screen here in front of the balcony. So the residents can really choose how they want to have the shading, how they want to have the transparency of their apartment, whether the neighbors should be able to see something or not. So you have a lot of things you can change and choose, and this is very nice. They like it, they really like it. This is photovoltaics, and yeah, here the apartments. You see, important for me is that the staircases have daylight, that the bathroom, most bathroom, or let's say half of the bathrooms have daylight. Also, we have interior bathrooms. So per apartment, 1 bathroom has daylight. The apartments are a little bit oriented to the side so that it makes the volumes also a little bit smaller than they are. Oops. And yes, the bathrooms. I think a bathroom is much larger when it has a window, a large window, but often in apartments, they don't have windows anymore. And here, just an idea of our construction. So this is all prefabricated. You see here, the colors mean the different elements. So this comes as a prefabricated element to the building site, insulation integrated here, and layer where you can have electrical wiring, and then a gypsum board here. The ceilings are in wood completely. So here, this is a massive wood panel of 22 centimeters or 24 centimeters. On top of it, we have a big mass. So this is an, let's say, a lightweight concrete, then insulation and then concrete with the floor heating system in it. Here, these houses, we have wood flooring because we wanted to have wood, or the owner wanted to have wood appearance. But the ceiling has a lot of mass, even though it is a prefabricated timber system. Of course, balconies are not going, thermal bridges are not existing. They are separately on the outside, so that here the insulation goes really through. Passive solar, you see this is a picture in November or February, January. So even in a multi-apartment house, it should be possible to use the passive solar energy to have a large amount of glass. Solar thermal on the roof here. This is a roof thing where the ventilation devices are, the ventilation of 15 apartments are behind. So we could have this angle very optimal. This solar thermal here in this case is not working with geothermal, but working with a wooden heating system. We have pellets. I don't know whether this is English. Pellets is a wood chips. It's a wood chips heating system in combination with solar thermal. And these, the photovoltaics railings. This was very interesting that when we put this on the house, many persons asked me or my project leader, what is this? What the design is this? And nobody realized that this is photovoltaics. But so all said, well, beautiful, you made beautiful railings. Is this somehow something new or so? And then, yeah, it is new, but also it produces electrical energy. So this is nice that you can have new materials, they produce energy. So we will have in the future too much energy. The gray energy, this is important. I told it already. You have to be careful about it. Of course, you cannot build a house without gray energy, but you have to be careful and think about what materials are you using. And so we really look at it, but of course you have to also to make apartments which can be rented. The outside, I think this is a very new theme. Is the biodiversity in our cities. We have to look, biodiversity of surroundings become more and more important. And so it isn't a grass to mow, it is really natural landscaping. And we plant this together with the biologist, not with the landscape architect, but with the biologist who decided on all these plants. They have all fruits, and this is all can all be eaten. All the fruits of these plants can be eaten, so there is no problem with children and so on. This is a very thick cladding on the facades. It is a cladding which has a thickness of 40 millimeters, so it is very thick. It will be lasting very, very long. Yeah, so I like to experiment with new materials. I like to make buildings which are healthy for the climate, but also for the residents. I think this should become the most important issues in architecture, but I think it has also to be to have an aesthetic quality. Otherwise, all solar will not be accepted. It has to be aesthetic. Thank you for listening to me so long.
Thank you so much. I can imagine the thundering of applause if we were having a live event with everybody in the room. There had been many comments about the wonderful projects you're showing us on the chat. Yeah, so a lot of wows and impressive projects comments. There are a number of questions as well.
Yes.
Firstly, can just as you are showing this project on screen, Peter asks if how the screens that are adjusted by the residents are being cleaned, and is it easy to clean?
These screens here?
The ones that separate the apartments, I think is what he means. Is that right, Peter?
I told these are normal blinds which you can move like this and pull up and down. And these screens here, this is a nylon fabric, which is which is transparent. So it's a nylon fabric, and it has a lot of holes in it. So when you look from inside outside on a sunny day, it's a feeling as you would have an sunglasses in front of your eyes. It is that. And so it doesn't, at night, of course, from outside, you can look inside. So it's a sun shading. This doesn't have to be cleaned at all. And it is very long lasting. I use them for 20 years now. It is just washed by the rain or so. But of course, this is all steered by solar and wind device. No, only by a wind device. When they are down and it is windy, then they are pulled up for security reasons. Otherwise, they will break.
Yeah. The renovation projects are really impressive, and I think there are a lot of positive comments about that. There's a question about that the cost of doing these apartment renovations,
yeah,
and how it compares with new build projects.
Yeah, it is really depending on the situation. For both projects, I calculated it, and we are about at 75% of a new building. But these buildings are kind of new, so there are many. They're not. There's just the massive structure, which is an old one, and the massive structure is very long lasting. That never breaks down if it doesn't get wet, or it doesn't stay wet. So it is very long lasting. I think in both cases here there were more legal reasons to make a renovation instead of a new building. But the renovated building has exactly the same size as a new building could have. So we could enlarge it to the maximum size. So if you would tear down this building, then the new building would also only be 20% larger than the old one. And then I think it isn't worth. Of course, renovating old houses is much more ambitious than to build new things, because you have all kinds of surprises. You have to make very deep investigations on the substance, yeah, it is very demanding to renovate buildings. But I think it is worth. And of course, the gray energy for the one with the very large collectors, I calculated the gray energy, and we arrive at only about 30% of a new building, because the advantage is a lot amount of the gray energy is in the basement. So is first deteriorating, tearing down all this concrete mass we had, because all concrete building, we have to tear it all down. then you would have to make the new excavation and to pour the new basement in concrete. And there is so much gray energy that it is always worth to use existent structures.
And I take it the additional floor added on top also helps with the cost benefit.
The additional floor helps for the economical, quality, because you can add on top of a house apartments which you can rent out to a very high price. And this is the advantage. It helps to keep the lower apartments in a normal rent. And therefore it's very important that you can add stories on existing buildings. It is actually a social reason, because up there you have the rich people which can pay a high rent, and so down there you can have the poor people which can more or less keep the old rent.
And did you keep the residents in the apartments during construction?
In the one with the large collector, no, this was completely emptied, this house. This wouldn't have been possible. And the rents after are 30% higher than before, which is not very much actually. But in the second one with the roof like this, there I think 2/3 or half, at least half of the apartments were continuously occupied.
Right. There's also a question about fire risk of PV panels, any increased fire risk from using them, and how you normally, get round it.
What kind of risk?
In fire risk.
Fire risk. Actually, no. No. We have no problems with insurance. And in Switzerland, buildings have to be insured by the state. It's a state insurance for buildings. And it is completely normally insured. You don't have any risk amount, nothing. What you have to do is you have to, of course, make some safety precautions, and the fire guard gets, of course, firemen have to get plans where they can shut down the installation and so on. So if there's something burning, then firemen would first come to the house and shut down the whole system. So this is possible.
So the cooling, you talk about extra heat going back into the geothermal, one of the projects. How much goes back into the geothermal?
I don't know. I cannot say an energy amount. We call this free cooling. I don't know whether this is a term in Scotland. Here it is free cooling in German. The heat pump works kind of backwards. This is the only thing it does, and not all heat pumps are able to do it. But this has become more or less standard in the last 10 years in Switzerland. What you do is that you have the geothermal pump working, then the heat pump is working, and you have water on a temperature of 19 degrees flowing through your floor heating system. And so it cools down the apartment very efficiently because you have a large surface, And then if the surface is then at maybe 21, 22 degrees, and the room is on 20, maybe on 30 degrees, so you can cool down the room maybe for 3 degrees, not more, of course, 3 degrees. But this is very comfortable. When it is outside, it is 33 degrees, and you come into your apartment, which will be maybe 30, but then it is only 28. So you feel that it is very comfortable. You cannot. It is not a climate. It is not a climate control system. So you cannot cool down it to 20 degrees or so. It may be difference of 2-3 degrees.
Yeah.
And it's worth saying, if I can just butt in there, that you tend to use deep bore ground source heat pumps, which are rare in this country. We do have them, but they're rare in Scotland, whereas the cheaper air source heat pumps, which aren't nearly as efficient, is what tends to be used here.
Yeah, here we used in the house, 20 years ago, in this sunny woods you showed, there we have air heat pumps, but they are not common anymore, just maybe for small houses, because you have different problems. When it is really cold in winter, then you heat more or less by electricity. When the outside temperature is 0 degree, and then you get so little energy, so you heat by electricity, and then you have also a problem of neighbors, because it gets loud. And when houses are close together, so you have problems with neighbors. And geothermal ground systems have become much, much cheaper in the last 20 years. They're kind of standard now here. And in the house, in the Sunny Woods, maybe for you, Colin, Sunny Woods, this winter we are changing the heating system. So we put out these old air heat pumps, and we replace it by geothermal ground heat pumps. We drill we make 2 holes of 250 meters for the 6 apartments. And with the advantage that we will be able to cool the apartments in summer, and the owners are really looking forward that they will be able to cool it.
That's a great system. I wish we used that more often in Scotland. So there's a question about, you talk about the grey energy. I think we call it embodied carbon.
Embodied energy, yeah.
Yeah, and we wondered about the insulation you choose to use. There's a question from Scott about using things like wood fiber or hemp fiber and things like that instead of glass fiber. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, you can use it. The disadvantage is just that it is the U value is a little bit lower, and that the price is higher. So for wood fiber would be an insulation material for one family house. It's also a problem a bit of availability. So for larger buildings, it is really glass wool and rock wool is here standard, but there's no big difference.
Where do you source the PV panels? I think someone was very interested in sourcing the same PV panels with really nice designs. Do you go to the same manufacturer all the time?
No. This is a problem with PV. The problem with PV is that every 6 months, availability of products are changing. And yeah, so here, when you look at this photo, these polycrystalline PV cells, There are only 2 manufacturers. They both in Taiwan. And well, first when we started to plan this, then we wanted to have exactly these golden thing. And then we plan, and this lasts 2 years until we need them really. And then after 2 years, suddenly they said, well, these type we don't have anymore. Now you can have silver, or you can have pink or something like this. And well, we didn't want to have pink. And well, then was the big debate, and finally they offered us brown. And then we said, okay, we can live with brown. And very funny, when we unpacked these cells here in Switzerland, they were not brown, but they were these we originally wanted to have. Well, these are things which are sometimes a little bit, you need to have a little bit of luck. So the cells were imported from Taiwan, but the module was produced in Switzerland, and it's all handmade. As you see, this building with all strange angles, of course, these modules, we have different modules here. And when you look exactly, then you would see that the gaps in between the modules are not always the same. They can change from 4 millimeter to 8 millimeter to adapt on our weird dimensions of the buildings. And so these were all hand placed on the glass. And this is possible. Probably this is unique in Switzerland, that you can do such things, that you can import cells, give them to a manufacturer, and he will do this. And we designed every of this module was designed in my office. Dimensions. So there is existing individual plans for each module.
Yeah.
Of course, on a computer, this is not such a big work to do, but still you have to do it, and you have to find the manufacturer which is producing it for you.
And did you work out the gray energy for this, importing the cells and making the units?
No, no, probably no. I think this would be a scientific work. So scientists can do it for me next time, but we will not be able to do it. I give you the other example of these large solar collectors under renovation, these 180 square meters. So these collectors, or this chromatics glass covering the solar collectors, they were developed by ETH Lausanne. Then it is a startup in Lausanne having these rights of producing this. This glass was produced in Dubai. And from Dubai, of course, it should have come by ship to Europe, but as everything was so late all the time, of course, they came by plane to Zurich. And the collector, finally, we bought the collector by a company near Zurich, but the collector below the glass is produced in Austria. It is interesting that it is a wooden collector. Behind the glass is the frame, and so these things of the collectors is made of wood. And the advantage of this is that they can produce also any format you want to. It doesn't matter. You can choose your format. So these collectors were completely also produced as we ordered them. So you can make things here. And I really think this is very special in Switzerland, that we have much bigger freedom in forms and so on, because nobody's producing something on stock. Everything is only produced on the order, on the concrete order, but then production process are so that you can make everything very freely. So it is this company is in Vorarlberg, not too far away from this 2026.
Are these
Which
colored?
belongs to a kind of to our region.
Yeah. Another question on these colorful PVs. I think we'll make this the last one. Is it also about 80% of the normal efficiency? What's the
no. This is normal. This is normal efficiency.
Oh,
18%. There's no difference between polycrystalline and monocrystalline cells.
So the colored ones are the same as the black or blue ones?
Yes, yes,
Wow.
This is exactly the same. It's a different way to produce these cells.
That's great. I'm flooded with inspirational, superb talk and all these amazing, or you could probably have a look on chats yourself for all these amazing comments. To thank you for such an amazing presentation and sharing with us your inspirational ideas, innovation, and design flair with us. It's been a really wonderful evening. And I'm almost sad to say goodbye now, and we can't actually have a drink.
Yeah, me too.
But,
okay, thank you a lot to the
everybody
audience.
is the same as me and very much enjoyed tonight's event, and I hope to see you well, in person maybe next year or sometime after. And
let's hope so. Let's hope
everybody
so. Great
else
to
as
see
well.
you again, Beat. Too. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I would prefer to see something a little bit of Edinburgh and to see you nice people and to have a drink. I think it's a little bit sad to talk to a screen, but okay, that's the way it is. Okay, thanks a lot and good evening.
Yeah.
Great.
Bye-bye.
Thank you everybody for coming.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye. Glow.